Can the Atlanta Braves fix Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris? Or will they be black holes in the lineup again in 2026? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, your source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're probably part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started. You know, last season, I think one of the main issues with the offense, yes, you had guys underperforming. Austin Riley was underperforming, right? From a power perspective, Matt Olson underperformed. Marcell Ozuna decided instead of hitting for power, he would just walk a bunch, and then he got hurt and was never the same. But you also had a couple black holes in the lineup, right? Nick Allen was, and full disclaimer, I love Nick Allen's defense. It was a joy to watch him play defense. It was a struggle to watch him at the plate. They've now replaced Nick Allen with Ha-Seong Kim, and so theoretically that should be handled. But Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies, at times last season, were among the 10 worst qualified hitters in baseball, as measured by OPS. Albies finished with a .671 OPS, 16 home runs in 157 games, hit .240 with a .306 on base and a .365 slug. Michael Harris finished with a .678 OPS. Little better surface stats, 20 homers, 20 stolen bases, but hit .249 with a .268 on base and a .409 slug. So I want to talk about those guys today. I want to talk about, are they fixable? What can you expect from them in 2026? Or do you need to move on? And we're going to start with Ozzie because, just out of respect, he is the longest tenured Atlanta Brave. He debuted in August of 2017, has played nearly 1,100 games in his 9-year career with the organization. He is on the first of 2 club option years here, so he is making very little money. This infamous extension that he signed. Ozzie Albies is getting paid $7 million this year. He has a $7 million team option for 2027 as well. And Atlanta's decision on Ozzie this winter was essentially $3 million, right? It was a $4 million buyout if they didn't pick up the option, or $7 million if they did pick up the option. So the difference was $3 million. And as I've said on here a lot of times before, they weren't going to find any better options for $3 million. They just weren't. So it made sense to bring Ozzie back. But what can they reasonably expect out of Ozzie Albies? Because on its surface, when you look at the profile for Ozzie Albies, this feels like the kind of guy that teams are looking to extend. You're like, okay, he's entering his age 29 season. Ozzie's birthday is in January, so he will turn 29 in, I believe it's just over a week from today. He's a 2-time Silver Slugger and a 3-time All-Star who has 157 career home runs, 98 career stolen bases, and he's had a 30-20 season. 2021, 30 homers, 20 RBI. He's had a 33 homer season, and he's had dual 24 homer seasons. On paper, it makes sense that you would want to bring Ozzie Albies back and offer him an extension. But in reality, there's availability questions and there's aging curve questions on Ozzie. He's missed 1/3 of the season in 3 of the last 6 years due to injury. Now, the big thing here for Ozzie is most of these injuries, I'm going to argue, were not really his fault. a foul ball breaking his toe. That's not a thing you can reasonably train to prevent. A hit by pitch broke his finger. A broken wrist because of a defensive play at second base. Like, a lot of things are things that happened to him, not injuries that he incurred, right? But because of all of those injuries, he's not really been the same dude. The last 2 seasons combined, it's over 1,100 plate appearances, a 91 OPS plus, 26 home runs, 22 stolen bases. The first 7 seasons of his career, he averaged an 804 OPS, a 91 OPS plus, and Ozzie's always had to. When I wrote this newsletter up like a week ago, I said he had to hack his performance. Ozzie's never swung the bat very hard, and some of that is because he is not a very big man. He is 5'7" and 165 pounds. So, what Ozzie has done to generate power in his career, there's 2 things he's done. The first one is he swung an incredibly heavy bat. And this is all like first person. I saw these bats in the dugout. Ozzie's bat is 34 and a half inches long and 32 ounces. It's bigger than Matt Olson's bat. It's bigger than Austin Riley's bat. It's bigger than Marcell Ozuna's bat. Like, Olson is swinging a 34-inch, 31 and a quarter ounce bat. Riley's at 34-31. Ozuna was at 34-32. Ozzie's bat is either longer or heavier or both than the sluggers on the team. These guys that are all 6'3", 220-something pounds. He's swinging a heavier bat than them because he needs the extra mass to generate the power, to generate the exit velocity. And then Ozzie is leaning into pulled fly balls in the air. By far, the most productive type of fly ball is one that you hit to the pull side. When you're looking at the performance of the pitch. And there are several guys in their careers who have generated all of their power from pulled fly balls. Some of them have similar profiles to Ozzie. Isaac Paredes, he's in the perfect ballpark for him in Houston because he can aim for the Crawford boxes, and his pulled fly balls end up being home runs. But guys who who aren't size challenged have done this. Nolan Arenado is the joke is he's a pulled fly ball merchant, but pulled fly balls, that is the way to do it. MLB average 16.7% of fly balls of batted balls are pulled fly balls. Ozzie's averaged almost 23% for his career, and he was at 27% last year. And the hard thing here about this, right, is Ozzie's doing all of these things. He hit a well above average percentage of his batted balls at the ideal launch angles and direction to generate extra base hits and home runs. And yet his 2-season home run rate is 2.4%. It's a career low. Ozzie has done some things to try to be more valuable as a hitter, right? His walk rate is up to a career high 8.2%. Still below MLB average. He's swinging and missing less than ever, but he's still chasing 30-something% of the time. And the other part of Ozzie is you have the lack of defensive value, right? He has the worst non-first base arm in the game. He's averaging 70 miles an hour on throws from second base. And when you watch him turn a double play, it's a rainbow to first base. It's not on a line, right? His range doesn't grade out incredibly well. It's just unlikely that it's a defensive package that's going to get back to positive value. So even if you can fix Ozzie, right? Even if you can get Ozzie Albies offensively going again at the plate, I still don't think he's giving you defensive value. And from a base running perspective, he's still a good base runner. He was above average +2 fielding base running run value last year. He's just not on base enough to use that. And his sprint speed is, 44th percentile at this point. So it's not stolen base stuff. It's a lot of he can go first to third on a base hit and things like that, right? He can take some extra bases. He's not adding value via stolen bases. Last season, it was a very prolific year for him. He was 14 for 17. That 14 steals is the most that he's had in a season since 2021. His previous next best was 14 attempts in 2023. So you're in a situation where offensively, he's not giving you much. He's been below average. Defensively, I'd argue he's not giving you anything. Can that be fixed? And if not, how do they replace Ozzie? Let's talk about him and Michael Harris next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Encase Cards, custom card manufacturer. I love these guys and what they do. Go to encasecards.com, N-C-A-S-E cards.com. You upload your source photos. It can be anything you want. I did youth sports. That's the most obvious application of this, right? My daughter playing soccer, my son playing t-ball. But this could be how you ask somebody to be your best man in your wedding, right? This can be a gift for a child or a grandchild or something, whatever it might be. You choose the background and the holographic options and design your card in their online card designer. You choose where the text goes, the hologram, all of that stuff, front and back. View your proof. If you like it, great. Submit it for printing. If you don't, they've got white glove service to help you. But they print your card on high quality cardstock. They slab it in a plastic case, similar to if you sent them off to be graded. And then they send it to you in a plastic frame, a lot of different color options, that serves as a stand as well. Fantastic business model. They're great to give as gifts. I gave a couple for Christmas and people loved them. Encasecards.com, N-C-A-S-E cards.com. Promo code Braves Today gets you 20% off. Again, encasecards.com, N-C-A-S-E cards.com. Promo code Braves Today gets you 20% off. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. Some of the Michael Harris's issues offensively last year were not the same as Ozzie's. Some of them were the same, some of them were different, but they both were dealing with some pretty rough issues last year as well. Michael Harris also had career worst performance, and it's the fourth straight year that his performance at the plate has dropped. He hit .249 with a .268 on base and a .409 slug. So a .678 OPS and 88 OPS plus. So the fourth straight season, his OPS has declined. His on base has declined. He walked a grand total of 16 times in 641 plate appearances. It's a 2.5% walk rate. Now, the funny thing is, statistically, by counting stats and things, and part of that's because it's the first time he's had more than 540 plate appearances in a season, he had one of the better seasons of his career, right? 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. He's been very close before. He's had seasons with 20 stolen bases and then 19 or 18 homers. So he got 2020 this year. Career high in RBI with 86. And the only person to beat Michael in RBI last season for the Braves was Matt Olson with 95. Michael also, with runners in scoring position, he led the team in RBI with 67. Although he did hit only .228. It was a .668 OPS, but he did what he had to do to get the runner in. Again, he led the team. He had 158 at-bats with runners in scoring position and 67 RBI. So, simple math in my head, that's what? 40% of the time he got the runner in? It's not bad. But we saw some of the flaws that Michael's had for a long time get as extreme as they've ever gotten. Okay? His walk rate, I mentioned that, 2.5%. First percentile in all of baseball. Not good. His chase rate, 43.1%. First percentile in baseball. very, very difficult to think about how anybody could be successful with a chase rate that bad. Now, there are some guys who had okay seasons with a chase rate that poor. Salvador Perez is one of the better power hitters in baseball, 98th percentile in barrels. His expected weighted on base was 86th percentile, and he has a chase rate of 2%. Plus, he doesn't have Michael's speed to help make up for that. Pete Crow Armstrong was electric in the first half, was terrible in the second half. Chase rate of 2%. Jose Altuve, chase rate in the 5th percentile. But the ultimate thing here is Michael is one of the worst, if not the worst in baseball at chasing out of the zone. And the funny thing about that is he was the best on the team at making contact inside the strike zone. He just didn't see enough pitches in the strike zone for his performance to reflect that skill. I do also think it's a little bit like we have to point out too that he did have a little bit of bad luck last year, right? When you look at the difference in batting average between actual and expected. So Michael hit 249. His expected batting average on StatCast was 272. That's the worst differential on the team. 23 points of batting average. Fun fact, Ronald Acuna Jr. hit 290. His expected was 266. So he was 24 points better than expected. Michael was 23 points worse than expected. Michael's slugging, 24 points worse than actual. 409 actual, 433 expected. The only guys that had worse luck than him, Austin Riley and Marcell Ozuna. And so my question is, were Michael Harris, instead of hitting 249 with a 409 slug, if Michael Harris hit 272 with a 409 with a 433 slug, would we be as frustrated by his season? Because again, yes, he chased way too much and he rarely walked because of it. And ultimately it drugged down his OPS below 700 for the first time in his career. But again, at the same time, we would be remiss if we didn't point out he also was the victim of some bad luck. Had he hit 272, do we feel differently about his season? Is the framing of this discussion about like as negative, the tone as negative as it is if Michael Harris hits 272? Because again, the expected was that he was supposed to do that. And like, to be clear, he's not significantly different from who he's been in his entire career. Now, he has gradually gotten worse on some of these things. His walk rate by percentile, 11th percentile, 4th, 8th, and 1st. It's dropped. His chase rate's gone from 7th percentile to 1st percentile. But his whiff rate has gone from 27th percentile to like middle of the road to 50th, right? His defense has gotten better. His bat speed's gotten better, right? Like when you look at the components that go into his swing, he's gotten better on a lot of aspects. But the glaring issue is the chase, right? Like he doesn't swing and miss as much, but he still chases as much as possible, which means he's not making as quality of contact as he could. And I feel like you saw early in the year, you saw him trying to internalize the Tim Hires being patient approach by just being passive at the plate. And that didn't work out for him because the pitches he ended up missing were strikes and pitches that he would normally hit hard. And then when he turned around and got aggressive in the at-bat to try to get back in it, that's when he got hit with stuff out of the zone. So struggled to adapt to that approach. And he took some advice from Chipper. It was advice that Tim Hires had been trying to give Michael. and he got hot around mid-season. If I remember right, the advice initially was given in this when they were in Sacramento to face the Athletics. And so from the St. Louis series, the final series before the All-Star break, all the way to mid-August, Michael hit .396 with a .409 on base and a .716 slug. He had 3 walks in that month, but he only had 10 on the whole season. Or, I'm sorry, I think he had 20 in the whole season. I'm sorry. He had 3, by the way. Michael had a game where he walked 3 times the last week of the season. It's just absurd that it even happened. Whatever. Anyway. But when Michael took that advice, changed his stance, his hand set, was a little more vertical and at the plate, and was able to fire off at pitches, maybe see them a little better, fire off at them a little bit quicker. Again, he hit .396 with a .716 slug. It's 1125 OPS. He hit 9 home runs in 33 games, drove in 23 runs, scored 24 times. Like, the potential's there. The tools are there. The issue here is getting him to do that consistently. He did struggle from that point on, right? Like, from when you look at that White Sox series through the end of the season, so the last month and a half of the season, he hit .213, .232 on base, walked 3 times in 36 games, slugged .338, it was a .571 OPS. He went back, he had about 1 hot month in the season that saved his entire numbers. Do we feel differently, again, if Michael Harris is hitting .272 with a .433 slug instead of hitting .249 with a .409 slug? I'd love for him to walk. I am the type of person that believes that hitters, for the most part, are who they are. You can incrementally change some of these things year to year. I mentioned it earlier that Ozzie's gradually gotten better at walks. And now, over the course of his career, he's gotten his walk rate up to close to league average. Like, they incrementally get better. He used to be 13th percentile at walks in 2018, and now he's at 50. His hard hit rate, though, is still 10th percentile, right? Like, he chases around the same amount he always has. He's been 17th percentile in chase in 3 of his 6 qualified seasons. Outside of that, he's had a 22, a 10, and a 14. He's not fundamentally changed who he is as a hitter. Chase rate's still there. But he's walked a little bit more. He's whiffed a little bit less. And like he's gradually improved. Michael Harris could gradually improve over the course of his career. It's going to take work. I think we feel differently if the batting average number is 272. I don't know why we should. It doesn't make sense. But I feel like we do. But in just a minute, I want to talk about what we do going forward with these guys. What's the plan for second base? What's the plan for center field? We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Slander absolutely works. I've been talking trash about the Atlanta Falcons now for a couple weeks. They are 3-0. Ever since they were eliminated from the postseason. I love that the Atlanta Falcons are the 2008 Detroit Lions until they're eliminated from postseason play, and then they become the 1985 Chicago Bears. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand how that happens. It's incredibly frustrating as a fan. I'd like for them to play games that genuinely matter. Since 2018, they have a .405 winning percentage in games where they're eligible for the postseason. Once they've been eliminated, they're 12-4. They just can't handle the pressure, I guess. I don't get it. But if you were smart and took them to not only to cover, if nothing else, against the Rams, I think they were like a touchdown dog at home, then you made some money on FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. Maybe Falcons -3 at home next week. See, here's what they're going to get you. You're going to start believing that it could happen, and then, bam, they're going to break your heart. As soon as you're counting on them to win, they're going to break your heart. But if you are, a degenerate or a believer or whatever, Falcons -3 on, I think it's actually on Saturday night at home against the Saints. FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. All right, final segment of Braves today, Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about succession plans for these guys. Because I think if there's anybody you're going to fix and that you feel like could be fixed, it's Michael Harris. Again, just having a bad chase rate does not doom you to be a poor hitter. Michael Harris was a poor hitter last year with a bad chase rate. But just having a bad chase rate does not doom you to being a poor hitter. And I do think even if Michael Harris never really figures it out and is always a high chase, kind of low floor, high ceiling bat, right? Like, look at what Pete Crow Armstrong did in the first half of the season. He was electric with a poor chase rate. He was hitting a bunch of power, stealing bases, doing all that stuff. When you look at what Michael's making, he'll make $8 million this season. Mike Yastrzemski's making more than Michael Harris. Harris will make $9 million in 27, $10 million in each of 28 and 29, $12 in 2030, and then the Braves can be done. They don't have to pick up the two club options at $15 and $20 million for 31 and 32. They don't have to do it. So I think it's more important to get him right than it is to get Ozzie. The other reason for that is there's just not a lot of really good options in center field to replace because Michael is such a good defender and that's such a premium position. If you go to free agents after the 2026 season and you look, this is the list from MLB.com, you look in the outfield, your free agents, your best center field option, Dalton Varsho, is a very good center fielder. He is defensively one of the best, which is amazing because he used to be a catcher. He went from catcher to center field, just like Dale Murphy did. Although Dale Murphy briefly stopped at first base on the way. For his career, he's a 227 hitter. He hit 238 last year with a 284 on base. He's that same kind of, granted, he only played 71 games, but he walked like 17 times. A normal full season of baseball, his on base has hovered just under 300, and he's walking 40 times in a full season. Still more than Michael, but not great. You also would be signing up for him after his age 29 season. Outside of that, Luis Robert, do you think he's going to recover? Once you get past that, there's not a lot of guys who profile as center fielders. Ramon Laureano covered it a little bit in Atlanta. He's not a center fielder full-time. Lane Thomas hasn't proven he can hit. Victor Robles ended up being, I think, a right fielder in Seattle after he was DFA'd by Washington. Seiya Suzuki's a corner outfielder. Ian Happ's a corner outfielder. Randy Arozarena's a left fielder. Springer's played a little bit of center, but George Springer's not a center fielder at this point in his career. Trent Grisham is going to have to move, I think, from center field to a corner. He's starting to sag a little bit in the corners. Cedric Mullins couldn't hit last year. So, not a lot of options in center field. You've got to fix Michael Harris. You've got to figure that out, or at least get it to the point where you can get the performance, get good enough performance from a power perspective, a defensive perspective, a base running perspective, or whatever, to offset the chase. But second base, here's the thing. Second base actually has a lot of options next year. And I'm not saying Atlanta's going to all of a sudden go out and sign a free agent on a large multi-year deal to be the starter at second base. That's not really what they do. But there are names. Jazz Chisholm Jr. He doesn't really fit with what Atlanta likes to do from a flashy kind of thing, right? He's the biggest name on the list, though. He'll be 28 when he goes in the free agent market. Silver Slugger last year, 2-time All-Star. He had 40 stolen bases in 2024. He went 31-31 last year. He was moved off a shortstop by the Marlins. He's not a shortstop anymore. But he's played both second and third. He played some center field in the last couple seasons. Miami moved him to center before he got traded to New York, and then New York put him at second base. I still think New York needs to sign a second baseman and put Jazz back in center. But the point is, there's a big name out there. There's also some other guys who do give you quality defense and contact. Nico Hoerner makes a ton of sense. His contract with the Cubs is up. And when you look at Nico, he's a guy that makes a lot of contact. He doesn't whiff a lot. His strikeout rate last season, 7.6%. Now, he doesn't hit for a lot of power. His single season high is 10 home runs, and he had 7 last year in 156 games. He hit .297 with a 739 OPS, a 114 OPS plus. He got a Gold Glove at second base, second time he's won it, and he had down ballot MVP votes. If you're continuing to lean into the Tim Hires, making frequent contact, putting the balls in play philosophy, you can see the argument for signing Nico Hoerner. The only reason defensively he moved off a shortstop was out of deference to Dansby Swanson. So maybe if you end up needing somebody who can cover shortstop for you defensively, reminder, both Ha-Seong Kim and Mauricio Dubon are free agents after this season. I'd like, ideally, the Braves to bring Kim back, to sign him to a multi-year deal so he can be shortstop, and then if you end up getting one of those youngsters ready, a John Gill, an Alex Lodis, or whatever, you can, if you want to move Kim over to second base, you can. If you want to break one of those guys in the majors at second, you can do that too. Other options, Gleyber Torres, he took his qualifying offer with Detroit, so there's no way he'd have one next year. Jonathan India, former All-Star. He is kind of defensively limited to second. I know he's played third. His arm is awful. It's really not the type of arm that should be at third. He's played some outfield for Kansas City. He's also not really good there. But a guy that when he's been good, he's been pretty good. Brandon Lau, the slugger, who was just traded. He'll spend his final season before free agency with the Pirates. He'll be 32. He'll be 32 when you sign. He'll turn 33 during the season. But that might be a shorter term, 2-year kind of bridge guy to give you a slugger at second base. In his last 3 seasons, he's hit a combined 73 home runs, and he's dealt with injury. It's been a 162 game pace of 34 home runs a season. So he's hit for plenty of power. If you want the power approach versus the contact on base approach, you've got options there. There's guys that you can bring in. Here's the hard part about Ozzie Albies. And I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. He's not giving you defensive value. He's a decent base runner, but he's also, because of his raw speed not being great, he's not your first choice to pinch run. He's not giving you defensive value. And offensively, he's really struggled at the plate. Now, he did pick it up a little bit last year as he got farther away from the broken wrist, and then he broke his hand. But I remember when Nick Allen took over shortstop, the Braves would go entire weeks or a month or whatever and never use Orlando Arcia because he wasn't a good base runner. He didn't give you a ton of any offensive value. And so he virtually just never got in the game, and they eventually released him during the season. I feel like Ozzie Albies would be in that situation as well. If you had somebody else to play second base, when would you put Ozzie in the game? Maybe would you he wouldn't be your first choice as a pinch hitter. You would go with a better hitter than him. He wouldn't be your choice for defense. He can't play anywhere but second. He's too short to play first. I don't know if we've ever had a first baseman that was his size. He's a good base runner on the whole, but he's not incredibly fast. He's not your first choice for a pinch runner. Where do you use Ozzie Albies? What utility does he have on your bench? He doesn't really. He needs to start. And if he doesn't start, then the only reason to have him on the roster is sentimentality. Is because he's the longest tenured Atlanta Brave. And you could instead have either Dubon on your bench, who does a lot of different things. You could sign a guy to be your everyday second baseman, a Nico Horner, a Gleyber Torres, a Brandon Lowe. Jeff McNeil is probably going to, could potentially have his club option decline and be a free agent. And if he is, he might be somebody you take a 1-year flyer on. Jazz Chisholm's obviously the guy. He probably gets a qualifying offer from New York, which complicates things. But it's just very hard to see how Atlanta would do this, right? I mean, maybe they think Nacho Alvarez is ready to take over at second base. They tried to have him play some second base in Gwinnett early when he was activated from his spring training wrist injury, but then Austin Riley got hurt. He had to come up and play third. Nacho does profile as more of a second baseman, right? He doesn't have the power for third base. But, you see how he could be a Tim Hyer style contact and walk guy. You could see how this could work. It's a low ceiling option, though. That can't be your plan A. Maybe they look for a trade. Maybe they go and they reach out to Boston and then say, hey, we want Christian Campbell. You guys traded for Wilson Contreras. And if you bring Alex Bregman back for third or sign Bo Bichette for second, guys will move around and Christian Campbell doesn't have playing time now. He signed an 8-year, $60 million deal last year, and then got optioned down to AAA, and they want to move him to the outfield. But guess what? They already have 5 outfielders, and they're trying to trade at least one. Even if they trade 2 of them, he's still not one of your favorites to start in the outfield. Could Atlanta say, hey, give us the Georgia Tech guy back? Maybe with the Jeff McNeil deal, maybe you go get Zach Gelliff from the Athletics. He has 2 more minor league options. Maybe you get him and you stash him in the minors, and if you could fix him, you bring him up when you're ready to move on from Ozzie. Who knows? Maybe Bryce Matthews of the Astros. He's blocked at second by Altuve. He's blocked at third by Carlos Correa. Maybe Kyron Paris of the Angels. He can play second base and center field. He's blocked by Christian Moore, the first rounder in 24, as well as Vaughn Grissom, who the Angels just got, and they want to play second base. There's options. It just doesn't feel like Ozzie's long for the roster. This may be the final season. And even if you bring him back for one more run in 27, it still feels like he may not be long for the roster. Because I think the most realistic best case scenario is he rebounds offensively and hits well enough this year for us to pick up the option for 27. I just don't see a world where Atlanta signs him to an extension. So you need a succession plan. And you need one that's a little more promising than Nacho Alvarez. This has been Braves Today for Tuesday, December 30th. Do me a favor. You're listening on audio. 5-star review would be fantastic. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live, when we drop the next episode, and all that stuff. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.